No,
and that's
scrap
kind
that.
of
They're shit. Move on.
yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Deep Drop for another episode. This podcast is a fishing podcast that asks lots of funny questions, fishing-related questions, and does our very best to put a spin on answering them. And, you know, if you've been around for the last 40-odd episodes, you'll have known that quite often we get sidetracked, off track, and nowhere near any sort of sensible answer. But if you're new here, buckle in, because that's exactly what it's going to be like. I'm Luke McCredden and Adam Ring is with me as always. Ads, is that a fair sort of summation of what we try and attempt on this show?
Yeah, it's fair. If you're not listening to this podcast and have a headache, you soon will have one. Sorry, not sorry. But we will dance around a specific answer for 30 to 40 minutes, and then expect you to come up with a final. So it's kind of what we do, Luke. We have fun doing it, and it's a good time.
No, it is a good time. I want to give a shout out. We don't often do shout outs, Ads, do we? But I'm
No,
going
we
to do
don't.
one. Last week's episode was the we did a bit of an after wrap up. We spent a few days up on the Gold Coast, Ads, at the trade show, the fishing trade show up there, and it's always a good chance to mingle with some people, network with some friends that you don't get to see all that often, and quite often it's once a year, and it's after's where it's at. I want to give a shout out to my pal Dean Overhaul, who is now binge listening to the Deep Drop. Dino, thanks for your support, pal. Now, the reason I bring him up is he's a New South Welshman, Ads.
Yep.
Let's fair to say a lot of our audience is Victorian based, and that's okay. That's where we're from. We talk a fair bit about Victoria and our fishery here. And we spoke a fair way back. There was an episode where I think Andrew Hart was on the show, and we're talking about kingfish. And are they dirty? And what do they do? There's myths around banging their heads against rocks to get rid of the jigs. Dino listened to that episode and said he's seen it. They do it. They're dirty. So he's right on. He was up and about telling us what we were saying was wrong. And that's great. Let us know.
Happy to be wrong. Happy to be wrong. And Dino, I know you'll listen to this at some point.
Yeah.
But even though we're happy to be wrong, we're also happy to tell you that you're wrong too. So bring it on.
No, it's good. And like I said, anyone new here, please join in. And this is what it's all about. We have a lot of fun, and we give our opinions, which are very light and loose and quite often not backed by any fact. But at the same time, Ads, you and I have been around this industry for a fair while, so we do have a few things to say that might make a little bit of sense.
Yeah, every now and then we'll drop a little gem here and there. It's just you got to listen carefully to find them. But as I said at the top of the show, we have a good time. We want you to have a laugh, but we want you to get involved.
Yeah,
hit us up on Instagram. Like I said, we don't try and be right all of the time. Jump on and give us your opinion, because this is an opinion-orientated program, and the thing with an opinion, it can't be wrong as long as you're not being a dick. So share your opinion. We will pull it apart, and it will be good fun.
And if you're being a dick, just shut up and find another podcast. Do you know, there's also other opportunities and ways you can get involved, and Spotify now have some options where you can ask questions to the listeners, and people out there can give some responses. There's also polls. And I threw one up last week. We were talking about the annual battle of tonic versus spotters at the After Trade Show, which is always a great time. And we love both companies. We love all the people behind those companies, got strong relationships with them, had a bit of fun. But I did ask on Spotify what your favourite sunglasses brand was. And I think people are still learning that they can get involved on Spotify. But there are people that have voted, and at the moment, or last time I checked, it was 50-50. There was some votes either way.
Ooh,
so, yeah, which makes sense, doesn't it? I wouldn't expect it to be anything but 50-50, really, in the scheme of things. But anyway, so there's that. Instagram, Spotify, do what you need to do. Get involved. As I just mentioned, we've been around for a while, and I'm just going to be on the front foot here. I'm turning 40 this year.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
40.
I'm just kind of owning it, but... You know, there's little things that you start thinking about, like, am I getting to the point where, getting a bit older, do I join a fishing club? Am I hitting that? Am I hitting that age bracket? Do I take up fly fishing?
Well, I thought you were turning 40, not 85. But anyway,
Do I well, yeah. I mean,
Did you just say, do I take up fly fishing?
I don't know. At what age do I do that? You know what I mean?
You don't.
You don't ever. But there's just all things, and I'm on the front foot. I just got to own it. It's not old, is it?
No, it's not old. No, it's not old.
No.
I'm only a couple of years behind you.
I know
it's
you
not
are.
old.
You're catching me anyway. But I just, it's good. And when you're, I suppose to that point, look back and we've spent a few years in the fishing game ads, which is pretty cool. But it's actually interesting when you said 85 about fishing clubs. Then it's kind of a trending thing these days that fishing clubs are predominantly the older demographic. And I'm not being ageist here at all. I'm just sort of, and 85's not accurate, but
just a made up figure,
made up number. But I just had a thought, is there many younger people, and when I say younger, I'm talking teens, coming through the ranks that are affiliated with these fishing clubs? It's not something I hear much of these days, the traditional angling club. I know there's still well and truly plenty of them around, and speaking from here in Victoria, there's still quite a few, but it's actually an interesting point. I wonder if it's got the strength it once had.
Well, I think it would be fair to assume that angling clubs would be finding it hard to recruit new members.
Yeah, because going back, I suppose, I feel like when I was younger, there was some really strong angling clubs around. But then even now, just thinking, what were the main purpose? Obviously, there's a big social aspect, which is great. What were the sole and main purposes of being a part of a fishing club?
Well, I think fishing clubs were probably at that peak when information wasn't as easy to come across.
Ah, true.
So if you can think on a monthly meeting for any given fishing club, you get a group of like-minded locals that would all congregate in the club room somewhere, and they would cover everything from sharing tips and techniques to up-to-date fishing reports of their first-hand fishing reports of their local waterways.
Yep.
There was this big sense of community. There was the more experienced helping the newer members get into fishing and enjoying it. I think when you list the positives like that, it seems like something that should be bigger than ever. Because, in this day and age of craziness and chaos and information coming from everywhere, that sense of community, and it could be a brilliant thing and would be a brilliant thing. I think it could also be its downfall.
Yeah, you actually just touched on something there, which I was just the information side of it, or first-hand reports, or even just technical information. And like you just said there's a whole lot of, I suppose, avenues now to get information. Do you reckon that could be a detriment on some of these fishing clubs?
Oh, for sure. Whereas you would go to a monthly meeting to get that information, you now, tap your phone half a dozen times and you can essentially get the same information from a much more wider variety of person, which it's not a negative. It just works against what maybe one of the biggest draw cards of being a part of a fishing club would be. Because
remember early on in the Deep Drop history, maybe back in the first dozen or so episodes, we did a thing we were talking about whether, I suppose traditional fishing reports were still valid, as in email it out fishing reports. And I think from memory you were all for it. And I didn't hate the idea, but my argument was, are they relevant anymore? Are they kind of redundant, given that any report specific you need to know or want to know, you can kind of, as you say, just tap your thumb on the screen on a social media account a few times and you've got pretty much everything you need. Yeah.
And I think, and you're right, even although I still do think a fishing report's relevant, I still think a fishing club's relevant. It's a hard slog though. It's not what it was, but I think we're missing the broader point to say a fishing club. And it's just that sense of community. I think it's that sense of, like I said, there's everyone from 10 to 60 to 100 people, depending on the size of the club, making a point of catching up once a month and just talking about their local fishing, fisheries. They organise
Yeah.
people to come in and give presentations on certain bits and pieces. They're organising club comps, which gives everyone a reason to get away for a weekend just to go fishing and enjoy that camaraderie.
I love it. I love the concept of it. And I'm just curious as to whether they're drawing, and I'm just absolutely speculating here, but I'm curious and I suppose questioning whether the draw for, drawing in of new younger members is a tough sort of sell. I mean, you're doing a talk this week, aren't you? You're doing a fishing club talk.
Yeah. So I'm going to be down with the Western Port Angling Club, who've got a rich history, and see the thing with Western Port Angling Club and why I think it's been, and they're not the only ones doing this, but I sort of know them a little bit better than some of the other ones. The reason they're such a successful club, they do more than just talking fishing, if that makes sense. They've had a huge hand in the upgrade and the works that have happened at the Hastings boat ramp, which is where their club rooms are. They're on the front foot as far as trying to make the whole fishing experience for everyone in that community and everyone that uses that boat ramp, which is one of the more popular boat ramps in Western Port. But they're genuinely trying to make that facility the best it can be through working with state government and local government to get that boat ramp right, to organising fishing competitions all over the state.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm there. They've got a Gippsland Estuary Brim Comp coming up. Nice. And it's for something different. It's a different voice. It's a different thing. And it's why it works really well. But again, like I keep coming back to your question, are they getting younger members coming through? I don't know.
Well, I don't
know.
The question is, what's the incentive to join a fishing club? If you're when we say it doesn't have to be younger, by the way, like it could be people in any point of their life, any age that wants to just jump into a fishing club. What's the incentive? I think there could be time to start thinking outside the box, getting creative with it. How are you going to draw people in?
Yeah. It is interesting because the incentive, I think the biggest sell or the biggest incentive is that personalised experience. I mean, you can jump onto
beer. Oh, sorry, no, okay.
Yeah, that's an open bar.
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm there. But if you compare that to, say, a social media page, and let's just use Western Port because we're talking about them, but you can jump onto a Western Port fishing-orientated Facebook group and get lots of information. But the second you ask a question, a relevant question, an intelligent question, there'll be 3 people that try and help you and 65 that think you're a wanker and start paying out on you. Whereas in a fishing club, they're there for that reason. You can speak to them. You can speak to those members that have years and years and years of experience. You can get, an actual interaction rather than just a keyboard warrior.
What about, one of the sole purposes or reasons we do this podcast is because we like to throw out ideas and see where they land. And I think there's something in that you're right, sitting in a room with people as opposed to on your keyboard, because you're going to get some fuckwits getting on there and giving you a hard time about, really, reality is I don't think you and I are scared to say we don't know about something or we don't know how to do something.
Definitely.
But we're also aware that you throw something like that out onto the social media landscape and for no reason at all, people will just bombard you with, you're an idiot, what are you doing? Whereas, I think there's a massive... I just think I love the idea of the social aspect of it. I love the idea of people getting together, whether it's once a fortnight, month, week, whatever it is, having a few beers, unwinding a bit, telling a few tales, and then, what is it that? Why am I what is it that I'm joining for? Is it just that? Cool, okay. But I just think there almost needs to be a few little things that on top of little sweeteners to get people over the line. Because what would be really cool, and look. When I say this isn't a brand new idea. I dare say it's still going on, but I'm pretty sure there was intra-club competitions and all that sort of thing. But wouldn't it be cool to really liven those up and get? We've spoken about fishing competitions. I think we we basically pioneered an Olympic event. A national,
sure we did.
It was a national event.
Yep.
Which will turn obviously global at some stage. But getting that happening, that club versus club type feel, and as I said, I think there's probably some of that going on. But geez, it'd be cool to hype it up on social media, get some, get your team pumped up, get a bit of profile happening for your club.
100%. That would be unreal,
wouldn't it? Like team Western Port Angling Club versus
Essendon Angling Club, like
it could be
a bit of friendly competition, friendly banter.
Can you imagine though? Like you'd put together some teams. There might be some different, like in basketball or something, like social comp, whereas different grades. So you'd have your A grade fishing team, B, C, D, right down to maybe there's a junior tournament as well, and it just goes all year. Oh, don't get me started on the comps again. I just
it would be, well, it kind of ties in with something else that really piqued my interest. When we were having a chat to Al McGlashan, he said something about like IGFA records and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking of that, which I think IGFA records kind of fall into the same bubble that we're talking about with angling clubs, where no one really seems to give too much of a rat's about records anymore, because you can get more attention just putting a photo of a fish hanging from a gantry on social media than you can actually trying to claim a record. But I saw something on social media, it was only this week, and it was through a tackle shop, a local tackle shop that I know are heavily affiliated with the Bass Strait Angling Club.
Okay.
They actually did a Facebook Live covering a fish that was weighed in that they were trying to claim as a line class record. And it was awesome. And
did it pull a crowd?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, because I sort of just flicked through bits and pieces of it after the fact. I didn't get to see it live.
Yeah.
But just knowing that there was this hype of, okay, there's a really good local fish coming in, which was a big bluefin.
Yeah, get up and get around it.
On 15 kilo line class.
Yep.
And it just missed the record by like 5 kilos.
All right. So there is still some hype around it.
There is, but if you could tie in that sort of thing with an angling club, so you're making fishing unbelievably excited, you're drawing an online crowd, which is therefore is going to bring attention to not only your fishing club, but also you're building that sort of prestige of fishing again.
Yeah.
Where we're trying to claim line class records, which I don't know where we lost sight of all of that, because all that stuff is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It could, by using it all and
love that,
using like online, the social media part to your advantage.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool thing. A potential record was going live on social media of a big, like, again, potential world record fish caught in our local waters at one of the biggest ramps in Victoria.
I think
that's cool.
I think you may have sort of accidentally stumbled on what could be a really good answer for what's an incentive to join a fishing club. Ads. Make it cool on social media.
Yeah.
Make it cool on social media to be part of these clubs. And the kids of today will be TikToking all over the joint. Yeah. and but you know what I mean? But then again, like back to the comp thing too. Like if you could be part of a club like you are a footy club or a cricket club or whatever it is, and know that you could be competing for that club, there's something to strive toward. There's something to go up, and eventually you be in the A team, and if you're not getting a game and you get frustrated, you leave and you go to another fishing club, and it's controversial.
Mate, I think you're onto something here. If there was an overall peak body, say an association thing that was even creating a fixture. Yeah. So in snapper season, on every weekend, there was club v club. There was a ladder system.
Yep.
There's grand final, there's finals, there's playoffs, play in. There's
an app that you can keep track of the ladder and who's playing
the other teams, who's won other comps on the weekend, and you wouldn't make it too complicated. You could just bring in your key species, so your snapper, your whiting, your calamari,
brim,
and your brim. for those, and maybe trout to bring some freshwater stuff in.
Oh, you'd have to have a blue water element. You'd have to have tuna, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, yes. Well, if you can recruit some game fishers to your club so you can compete in that.
There you go.
In that category.
If you can't be, in that leg because you don't have a blue water team, fucking get out there and start recruiting.
Yeah, we're gonna have mid-season trades.
Oh, there'll be trades.
We're gonna have off-season free agency period.
There'll be a draft.
Yeah, see, that's how you get the young kids in with the draft.
With the draft,
yeah.
Mate, you get enough hype around it. All of a sudden, these clubs will start getting some funding from brands or organisations or sponsors that, not necessarily all fishing brands and sponsors, but it could be, Great Northern. I'm just having a beer right now, so I'm just like looking at the stuff. Like Great Northern might back whoever
the grand final,
Greensboro Angling Club, and all of a sudden they're pumping a bit of money in, so kids are going, I want to be a part of this. I can rock a cool tournament shirt.
But this could be the greatest thing of all time.
This could, and mate, if there's a state that's going to kick this off, it's going to be Victoria.
Yeah,
it's going to, and you don't have to. There's still, if you still want to be a social club, there's absolutely still room for it. But what I'm saying is, within the club's circuit, you nominate if you want to be in the tournament. If you want to be in the tournament series, you could
be representing your club. That's right. You could be representing your club. I think start small. Just the three key species with whiting, snapper, calamari.
Done.
And then
tick.
As it goes on a few years, gets a bit bigger, introduce bream, introduce trout, Murray cod, yellow belly.
And maybe
you just build it over time.
Maybe they're different seasons though, because I know there's quite a few angling clubs who are very, very much heavily fly fishing focused. So perhaps that, obviously they don't get included. But no, perhaps
they have their own. I won't say it.
No, no, we get them involved. Perhaps there is a leg or a season where it is because there could be multiple tournaments running at once because there might be the blue water section, mate. I just think you add those elements. There's the cool factor. All of a sudden, there's big social media presence. There's some branding, some sponsor. You be a part of this club. All of a sudden, you're affiliated with the X brand.
I love the idea of clubs having like 2-member teams for each species. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like picking their specialists.
Oh, specialists, yeah.
In whatever. And
like you've got a couple of absolute freak shows in the estuary. They're your brim guys.
They're your brim guys. That's right.
And then old mate a gun snapper fish shows. There you go. Bang.
This is so good.
You know what would happen is like there'd be recruiting going on. Like you'd be sitting there going, this guy, like he's
that's right.
Like he can catch snapper. We need him. How do we incentivize? Need this guy. He gets some sort of incentive payment program. Every snapper he catches, he gets a slab of beer or something.
Yeah,
mate.
I love this. See, this is up there with Carpathon for me.
Yeah,
I think. We're just breaking new ground on this podcast, Luke.
We don't have the time. We're going to have to just quit our jobs, ads, and start running this. Carpathon's going to take up a full year of my time.
We've now got the All Victorian Fishing Classic, Club v Club.
The Vic
we got
Classic.
to think about pre-season drafts. We've got to think when the trade period is mid-year. We've got to work out grand finals. Like this is big time, Luke.
Where do we host
this is big time?
Like what network airs it? Obviously, would look at 7 and 9 first, but if 10 want to come into it,
there's going to be a bidding war. We've got streaming services. We've got Foxtel.
I'm not fucking around with free to wear. We're going straight to KO.
It's big time. Yeah, we're not messing around.
But in all honesty, I think you just mentioned before about it. Something like this happening would need a peak body or an organisation that runs it. Obviously, we will get royalties. But we would need But if there was some sort of body that ran it, it could absolutely work.
It could work, and it could be unbelievable.
Do you know what I'd love about? This is just a bit of a sidetrack thing, but as I said off the top, it's what we do. Part of me would love the idea of competitions because I reckon you'd filter out the wankers that big note themselves on social media all the time. Because I think when push came to shove, and you said, all right, you've been telling us how good you are for the last 7 years. Here's a competition. Get involved. And I reckon a lot of them would be scared because it's easy to be a good fisherman on social media. Let's be honest.
Oh, and we could create a whole new set of wankers. There'll be some dudes out there that are just fishing their asses off and catching fish.
Yeah.
They could be our new wankers.
No, but at least they're doing it.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Exactly.
Depends how they hold themselves. Yeah. It's like, but they're doing it for a team. They're doing it for the club. They're doing it for
the club. Exactly.
Spirit of the club. If you want to get fishing clubs on a high pedestal, this is the way to go, ads.
We're going to need input on this. Let us know, would a Victorian club comp, club v club,
Yep.
heap of different legs going on, you nominate 2 of your best anglers per species to get it done for your club.
Yep.
There's fixtures, there's ladders, there's grand finals. Who knows what the hell that would look like, but we could come up with something sick.
I think it could be just like a top of the table come round, end of round. The last round is like a bit like EPL or whatever it is, that shit, soccer. I was trying to remember what sport it was. I don't think there's a grand final, is there? It's just like points. If you're on top of the ladder at the end of the season, you win the Premier League Championship.
I don't know, actually.
Of course, we don't know because it's soccer and no one watches. Actually, no.
Did you watch the Matildas the other night against?
I think I'm the only person in Australia who didn't.
Mate, I've never watched. Right, I've never watched a full game. Completely off topic. This doesn't even have anything to do about fishing, so I won't spend too much time on it. I actually watched it. I don't need to watch another game of soccer because that was unbelievable. It was stressful. It was tense. I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
The game wouldn't end. I didn't want it to end. And Australia won.
Never seen you this animated.
It was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
But only half of what this tournament could be like.
Oh, that's just a precursor, really.
Just like you think that's good. You wait and see, I'm trying to think of some fishing clubs. I'm sorry out there, guys. You know what? The other thing you were talking about, if your club, you don't have to be a part of a club right now. What I would suggest is when this gets going, sell yourself a little bit.
Create these clubs.
No. I'm saying get your profile up and you say
you
go to these clubs and say, oh, you need a whiting fisherman, huh? Here's my credentials.
I'm your man.
I'm your guy.
Here's my hype tape.
Here's my hype tape.
Could be like the N1 mixtape of fishing, like this dude just piling in whiting.
Just with sick music, 80s music over the top. Just, this is where I am. This is who I am. I'm not asking much. I just want a sick tournament shirt and a couple of beers at the end of the day's fishing.
Yeah.
Are you interested? Yeah, I will take it on board. Well, this guy around the corner is interested, so you need to make a call. Who am I going to represent?
This could be a flat-out game changer.
Mate, that's what we do.
I'm excited about this.
That's what we do.
And it's not even a thing.
Yet. Like, add it to the list, ads. Add it to the list. Jesus
I'm writing it down.
Christ.
Hear that?
Yep.
That's my notes pen. I'm writing this down.
It's never been used before. Wow. All right. Well, I mean, we probably don't need to get too much further into that. I think, we know the authorities listen to the podcast ads. I dare say I'll get a message in the next few days.
Yep. Add it to the list, VFA. Add it to the list.
If you want to be involved. If not, it'll be an independent thing. But they'll get involved. They love it. And they're good. They're brilliant. Let's change the subject, ads, because I want to raise something with you. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm fucking excited about this fishing club tournament. I'm not steering away from that, but I do. We need to let it go.
We need to let it bubble for a little bit. We just need some ideas to manifest. And
Well, to finish, get on Instagram and give us your thoughts, because we're going to put a post up. We're going to ask you just throw it out there and give us what you think, because we'll just start stockpiling some notes, and we'll make it happen.
Yep.
But moving along, there's something that's really interesting, and it's not too crazy out of control, but I'd just love your thoughts. And then furthermore, would love the thoughts of the listeners, because more often than not is where we get the good thoughts from. But ads, I am leaning on you. I'm just really curious as to know, and we've probably touched on it in various conversations throughout the series, but one of the fascinating things over the last, it's probably not even a decade, it's probably realistically maybe 4, 5, 6 years, is the rise of what I'm calling the rise of the flathead. Now, for years and years and years, and even when I remember as a kid fishing, they were more or less bycatch. And quite often snapper fishing, you go, oh, flathead. Or you'd head out and chase a gummy in the channels down south of Port Phillip Bay. Oh, flathead, whatever. But then you go sort of, I suppose, east or whatever, and you hit the estuaries, and it's bream you're chasing, let's be honest. I just feel, and don't get me wrong, I know people target flathead, and they've always been enjoyed and liked and respected. But, mate, they have risen to the top of what is now a legitimate trophy fishery here in Victoria. There's multiple metre plus fish caught every sort of season. When I say season, I mean throughout the year. Different seasons produce different sort of types of fishing and different fish. Would they be almost number one targeted fish in estuary fishing these days? And obviously I touched on the bays and that before. We'll talk about that in a minute. But from an estuary point of view, now I'm not taking any shine off bream, estuary perch, mulloway, that sort of thing, but flathead have to be right up there in the conversation when it comes to absolute fashionable trophy target, spend your whole day fishing fish.
I think I agree.
Okay, next. But you know what I mean in terms of, like, it hasn't been necessarily like a hugely slow builder. Just the last 5 or 6 years, and I guess I don't know whether some of the factors of the netting stopping or some stocking programs that have happened or whatever it is, all of a sudden the estuaries are like, you're talking for years and years about the 80 that you caught or the 90, and then of course if you catch a metre, well, fuck, like you've done it.
Yeah.
But they're now, different techniques are coming. Like people are chucking swim baits that are fucking massive, and I just feel like they've risen to almost the top of what people go out and want to target these days.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors contributing to the popularity of them. I think we're in the perfect part of the cycle, the flathead cycle, where there are numbers. There's good, healthy numbers of flathead between 80 and a metre.
Yeah.
So that's obviously a huge thing. We just seem to be in this purple patch of big fish, which is great. But I think the biggest thing, we're no longer scared to fish big.
Yeah.
Because you can go to Lake Tyers, for example, where between Lake Tyers and Malakuta, I think that's where majority of the big flathead stuff is, in Victoria anyway, has really brought it to the surface. But I think the Murray cod thing has given a leg up to the XL size of all these different species because we're no longer afraid to fish big lures.
Yeah.
Because you can chuck around a 4-inch paddle tail all day and you might get an 80 to 90 to 100, but you're going to have to wade through a million 25 to 45 centimeter fish to get it. But the gear's the best it's ever been. The lure's the best it's ever been. The technology's best. We're not scared to throw big lures. We're not afraid to cast all day for one bite, but it's the bite that you're after.
Yep.
We're learning more about these waterways. These waterways have just been perfect from an environmental standpoint to get these big fish happening, because up until Lake Tyers, especially up until that opened, for the first time in 10 years, there was natural prawn recruitment. So that's naturally going to get those big fish up and about feeding. They know when that's going to happen. They're not dumb. So we start to see more access to these fish. But do you know what I think is one of the biggest factors on why it's huge? Because a fishing competition made it cool.
Yep.
The Reel It In Flatty comp.
Oh, yeah. Those boys have done a good job.
Tip of the cap to those guys, because they made a round of it, as in different locations, in places where there were big fish, in a time where those big fish were accessible and you could legitimately go on target to catch them. All those things combined have made it as exciting a species to target in the estuaries than anything.
I fished a Reel It In comp last year, the year before maybe, at Tyers. And side note, fuck, it was fun. Those boys run a good comp. It's very social. Don't get me wrong, people work their guts out because there's a lot of good prizes to win and also a bit of pride and prestige about winning any sort of comp. But what a great tournament. But you're spot on. And I remember when they started that comp, years ago, whenever it was kind of, oh, flatty comp. Okay, cool. Like, nothing wrong with that. Like, sounds great. But what it's turned into is like, yeah, let's not fuck around with 40, 50, 60 centimetre fish. Like, we want big fish.
Yeah. Well, they'll attack it like they would, say, a brim comp.
Yep.
They'll go and get their bag of 45s to 50s, and then it's upgrade, baby.
Upgrade
get that
central.
bag, put those big lures on, hit those drops and flats, and just target big fish. Grind away for 2 days if you have to.
The year I did it was the year that there were more prawns in Lake Tyers than there'd ever been in the history of of Lake Tyers. That was so tough, and every flathead that was caught, there weren't many, well, not in our boat anyway, that were fat. It's so full. So to your point before, they know what they're doing when it comes to feeding. They know what's up. But yeah, so there's obviously that we're talking about dusky flathead, and I just think their rise to and when I say rise, I'm not saying that they've, no one cared yesterday and all of a sudden they do now, but it's been it's been
a gradual rise. But those fish are there. Those fish are there in numbers. You're a chance at getting them. And
to our New South Welshman friends, that particularly on that south coast, like it's something that your mate Stewie Heinsohn's done for a long time, ads, and really prided himself in taking his customers when he was guiding and finding those big fish, but it still didn't have the huge hype around it at the time. It was kind of a really unique thing, and it was almost to a degree, and this is very generally speaking, but if you want a big fish, you just have to go and fish with a guide because it's not accessible.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And it was weird though, because it was kind of like the general population didn't really want to work it out. Now, Stewie had it nailed. Like, if you wanted to catch a jumbo flathead or a Molo-8 in estuary, you just go with Stu.
Yeah.
But there didn't seem to be, the masses of people that were genuinely interested in working it out for themselves.
Yeah.
And maybe because the population of those fish wasn't as good as what it is now, maybe there was just better things to do. The South Coast of New South Wales is just, you tick a species that you want to get your PB, it's all there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's an amazing part of the world for sure. But to be able to now, to be able to have a focus on that now in Victoria, and I talk about duskies in the estuaries, but like I mentioned earlier about the bay, like fishing the bays, all of a sudden for some reason, and there may be reason, and there's probably some we've brushed over now, but like some of the fish that you're picking up in the bay, you're not looking at going, oh, fucking flathead again. Like you're going, holy shit, that's a good fish.
That one's worth keeping.
Yeah. Or it's certainly worth a photo and release it at the very least. And that's probably the other thing that we should touch on too. They're not just to catch and knock the fillets off every time you see a flathead hit the deck of a boat. Now it's all of a sudden about respecting and understanding how cool this fishery is, and let's protect it, which I reckon is a really cool thing too. And it shows that the angling communities, they know what's up. We know what's up. We look after our shit.
Oh, definitely. Well, and the biggest testament to that is Joe Farr, one of the charter boat operators on the peninsula. He takes pride in working out. Like he knows when, the blue spot flathead season is, and he knows where to go, and he's worked it out over years, and he can catch them. But when they're there, he limits the amount caught on his boat by his customers because he's seen those tough times of bay flathead when they all seem to be 15 centimeters.
Yeah.
And he wants that. He wants those numbers to be there, not just because he loves it and they're fish, and but he wants the harvest to be there. You should be able to take a few, but they can be a species that when you work them out, you can fill an esky every time.
Yeah.
And hey, when we were kids, Luke, I used to remember, we'd hire a boat from Mordialloc Creek. You'd just putt out. Who knows how deep it was because there was no sound. You just walked over the side, and you could drift, and you could catch as many flathead as you want. And they all seem to be ones. If you wanted to take them home for a feed, you could.
Yeah, and you did.
And you did.
Yeah, it was big kill sessions, no doubt. And that's we've come a long way in that sort of thing. And look, there's still bag and limits and size limits, and you're well within your right to fill those. But I think a lot of people now are realising you don't need to do that. We've spoken about bays and estuaries, but I think the offshore fishery, and we've spoken about it a few times here, is still a bit of an untapped
It is.
resource for flathead and many other species too. But locally here, you can go out and have amazing sessions on flatties offshore. And when I say offshore, you're not having to go a million miles. Like there's some really nice areas right along our coast in Victoria that you can get some big fish, you can get good numbers of them, and you can get them mixed in with things like snapper and some trevally and whatever else as well. So it's pretty cool. And same again, in that we've done a bit of that light jigging and plastics fishing on those inshore reefs up in New South Wales a bit too, Ads, and same deal. Like it's a great way to get a few nice flatties.
Well, I still think if you wanted to catch a feed of flathead, if you wanted to go and get half a dozen flatties for a feed and put a few fillets in the freezer, I still think going offshore and doing a drift for those tiger flathead, I still think that's your best bet, just to get best bang for your buck, where most fish are going to be between that 40 and 50 centimeters. You're going to get beautiful fillets off them.
Yeah.
I think that's if you wanted to feed, I still think that's your best bet.
They're typically a bit chunkier out there too. They've got a bit of chunk to them, bit of nice big thick fillets off those bad boys. Oof. Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to raise that with you and see sort of where you sat with what I'm calling the rise of the flathead.
Well, then what species do you think is next? We've seen the explosion of brim.
Yeah.
We've seen the explosion of Murray cod.
I know. Yes, absolutely.
And flatheads having a bit of a turn in the estuaries.
Obviously, the snapper thing happened a long time ago, and it's still the bar is still very high. I know what I'd love to see, and I'm not talking about rooster fish and peacock bass, but I'd love to see the next big spike and big thing being mulloway, and not just an increase in captures in estuaries. I'd love to see our offshore fishery really become a thing. More, and when I say like, it's not just going to happen, but I'd love the idea of at some point for some reason there all of a sudden they become a really viable offshore species to target. Now you can talk to various people along particularly I'm going to say, well, the surf coast and up through and along right up, I suppose, heading east as well across Port Phillip Heads, right across to sort of Phillip Island. There will be people tell you that they've caught plenty offshore, which I've heard recently, and I guess it's one of those things. We just need the next thing we need to work out, because if they're there and doing their thing, why not?
They would be there because traditionally they're an offshore species.
Yeah. Yeah, but for so long, and even still, they're seen as an estuary species now. To target, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But that's an interesting one, actually. I didn't think of mulloway, especially offshore.
We spoke to again Al last week, and he actually mentioned that their offshore fishery for dewies is declining. Like it's becoming a bit fucked because of. Well, I can't remember if he said it was all commercial or there was other factors involved as well. But I just think it's one thing about anglers, and this is what I love, and we speak about all the time, that you can't master it, right? Fishing, you just can't sit there and go, I know everything, I've done it all, because it's forever changing.
Yeah.
So it's only going to take a few people to work out a bit of a pattern and great ways to target dewies that might be just off the back of the surf breakers there, might be off the beach, land-based.
Yeah,
or it might be cruising around headlands, flicking plastics in a bit of wash, or it might be out deeper, 40 metres, and just drifting along some rubble bottom or whatever it is. I don't know. It'll happen. And I'm really excited at the prospect that it could happen at some stage.
That's an interesting one. I like it. I didn't think of it.
What do you think if when it comes to another the rise of something else?
I think we're going to start to enter the golden age of trout.
Okay.
I know trout have always been highly popular. They've always been highly prized, but I think we're going to see them become not just a species that you go fishing for when you go on a camping trip. I think you're going to find people they're going to find new ways to catch them with maybe some new and bigger lures, I think that could potentially find its way in. I think there's viable options now to go back old school. People are going to work out how to properly bait fish for them with floats and fishing runs. And the reason I say it is because we've never had this much water in my lifetime. I've never seen this much water. So when you go fishing for trout in a stream and you catch a fish the size of your hand, you're like, that's pretty cool. I think we're going to see a massive jump in the average size of wild trout in the streams. I think that water's healthy. I think there's going to be unbelievable amounts of food, more than we've ever seen in my lifetime with all of this water. We've got a lot of water still receding off floodplains. These rivers are going to become the healthiest they've been in a long time.
I love that. Love it.
I think we could see trout be a genuine, like, oh, what are you doing this sort of back end to the, what are you doing this, this autumn? I'm trout fishing. Don't worry about calamari. I've been doing that all summer. I'm going trout fishing.
Yep.
And I think over the next 5-10 years, I think we'll see some trophy size, like those genuine 6-8 pound fish in some of these rivers, especially if those water levels stay healthy. I think we're going to work out areas where those fish are feeding hard and properly.
That's a cool prospect. Cool prospect to target some of the big fish in river water, in rivers. That would be pretty cool. Hey, just on that, and it just prompted me to then when you said about all the water and, I wonder whether we'll get an uplift in bass fishing. I might be opening a complete new can of worms here, but what about bass? In the same sort of conversation or same breath that you just said all those things about trout, are we any chance to have more opportunities or more options open up with really viable bass fishing options that aren't like, the people, anyone listening who's into their bass fishing, they've got a plethora of places to go and do it, and they know, and they keep it to themselves for the most part, and that's okay. But you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if it will open up that fishery a little bit more.
I think it will if all of that water pushes them further down the systems. I know in that spawn time, when especially in the snowy, when they start to get, I guess, within easy access of, without having to go too high up a system to find them. Because I think, and it's not even an issue, it's kind of what makes for such a glorious fishery. Fishing for wild bass in the rivers is hard work.
Yeah.
You're dragging canoes and kayaks over rapids. You're basically just hopping between stretches of water trying to find them. The more remote, the bigger the fish.
Covered in fucking leeches.
And mozzies and just all that good stuff.
Yeah. Scrap that. They're shit. Move on.
Yeah.
It's a good point. But you're right, and that's why I'll raise it. Given a bit more water, will it push down further and bring them down further?
But the impoundment and bass thing,
with
Glen Maggie and Blue Rock, and those like take Blue Rock for example, we're only a few years away from being able to go and target a 50 centimeter bass.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's going to change the game.
Yep.
Because it's already been quite popular when you were, catching 60, 25 metre bass a session on top water in the summer. When those fish get bigger and wiser and harder to catch, I think bass fishing is going to have massive growth in Victoria.
All right,
in particular, base rating impoundments.
So we're talking about the next, I suppose, rise to stardom here in Victoria. We've spoken about how flatties have really owned it for a bit now, and I'm thinking Mulloway could be next. You're saying the big trout river fishing could be one, and then we've just discussed potentially Aussie bass making a bit of a motion. I think that's probably a bit further away, and it may be a bit down the line. But those empowerments for sure in the next few years. But this is where we want your feedback on that. What's the next fish to rise to stardom here in Victoria? We might get some good answers here.
It's a great question.
Yellowfin tuna.
Imagine,
mate. After talking to Al, I've had the blinkers on, just doing a bit of research on yellowfin.
Yeah.
Mate, that could be brilliant. Anyway, love to hear it. But as always, get involved. Instagram's a place to go, Ads, and we put up some questions up there to get some feedback and get your thoughts on it all, because we love hearing you guys just share your thoughts on it all. And quite often, you guys are the ones who come to us and say, hey, and here's some sort of facts around this that we've been talking about, which is brilliant. And we then can relay it on next week's episode. And it's what it's all about. We just like to open things up and we give our thoughts, but we may be way off. And that's okay. But also we might raise some things. We've had plenty of people, Ads, that where they say they agree. So we're not, we put shit on ourselves a lot, Ads, but we...
Yeah. Our bullshit's based on fact or experience.
That's a T-shirt. That's a T-shirt. Our bullshit's based on fact.
It is a T-shirt.
Fuck, we're going to have a good merch line in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Far out. We need to be writing all this down. Carbathon 24 tees. That's probably more a hoodie.
Yeah.
Our bullshit's based on fact. I mean, that's
a shirt.
Everything. That's a singlet, like a Bintang singlet.
Yeah. We've got our range of sublimated shirts.
Oh,
just on the back. Yeah. It's just a black shirt and in green print on the back. It says, "Is this shirt shit?" Question mark.
I love that. You're driving that. We do have Ads. I don't know. I'm just absolutely talking in real time here, so people listening can be part of this conversation. We do have some stubby holders. I'd like to give some away. How can we give some away on the show?
Just ask us nicely.
Yeah, ask us nicely. We'll organise sending one out. We'll talk more about it. We'll work out a better way to do it. Maybe next week we can have some giveaways.
We'll work something.
They're bloody good.
Yeah, they go all right. I stole one from the live show.
How dare you? Anyway, righto, let's wrap up. But please do get involved. Spotify is probably the easiest place to listen to our podcast, guys, and you've got opportunity to interact that way as well. But otherwise, get it wherever you get your podcasts. Share it around, tell your friends, and you might know someone who's got some ideas about any of the topics we're talking about. Send it to them and say, can you get in touch with these morons from this podcast and let them know what they're saying is all horse shit. And we love it. Don't stop sending some messages, jumping on the posts, and giving us your thoughts. But as always, Ads, we'll be back again to do it all again next week.
Yep. Who knows what world-changing event we'll come up with in future episodes. I think it's worth listening to find out what it is.
I'm telling you, we are changing the game one episode at a time.